I'm delighted to be here today to talk about zero carbon, towards zero carbon, because I think it could be the defining feature of city development over the next 100 years. And I don't think we've got anything like the answers yet, but we're starting to ask the questions, and I'm so delighted to support this conference. Because in my job, I think about the history of city development and how we're going forward and where we've come from. And you need to realise that cities come and go in terms of their prosperity. Some have come and some have gone, and they do change dramatically, and the forces that change them are hugely important and are topical, contextual forces that change them. If you look at the last 100 years, you think of the sprawl of Bristol that occurred, a 6 or 7 times increase in the city's radius on the ground, the way that the dominance of the motor car in the last 50 years shaped the city, the way that the tobacco industry shaped the south of the city. You think of these things and then you realise that we really are at a seminal moment in terms of going forward with Bristol, because the context, the forces that shape the city have changed. We're all familiar probably with the context and what is changing. We understand better peak oil now. We understand the realities of climate change, and we face unprecedented global challenges to the capitalist prosperity model. Growth, consumption, question mark. Is that the way forward? So we're operating in a very, very different world. Combine that with the shift in global dynamics. Britain is a much smaller player than it ever was, the emergence of the tiger economies, China, India and such like. It's a very different context trade-wise from what has helped shape Bristol in the past. Legislation through government is shaping the city and the future of the city in a huge way, in a similar way to perhaps how waste practice has changed in the last 10 years as a result of EU regulation in response to understandings about the landfill catastrophe. Then now we're seeing similar legislation around energy and such like. So there's very strict legislation going to be impacting on the way we operate over the next government direction, really, to shift the way we're going to change. Carbon reduction being the most obvious recent example of that being central to government policy now. And of course we have local demands. Business locally, people locally, wanting to live in different ways, wanting to operate in different ways, shaping the way Bristol is, making Bristol unique. So the context is very, very different. The next 10 years are, as I've said, a seminal period in city dynamic shaping shift, I think. And Bristol has the chance to be the first post-recession, post-peak oil, post-climate change new city. It'll be very different to the city that we've got used to and that has emerged over the last 1,000 years. The challenge for us is to not just let that happen, but to actually embrace it. What is it that we want in Bristol? We want this city to be characterised in these ways, I think. We certainly want more sustainable communities where people are happy to live, that are self-supporting communities, rather than housing estates that you drive away from, where elderly people don't feel comfortable to go out at night. We want sustainable communities. We understand now about sustainable, self-sustaining communities. We want prosperity, but we want a new type of prosperity, and we want equality in that of prosperity, and we want better health. 10-year life expectancy difference between North and South Bristol. What? 21st century Britain? Hard to believe. Still a fact of life. We want equality of prosperity and health. We want to show leadership because I think in Bristol people recognise the challenges we face about the climate, about the environment, and want to change this city to be an exemplar of green capital thinking. We certainly intend to be that. And we want low carbon, because I don't think we want sprawl, we don't want motor car based means of transport, we want cycling, walking, public transport, we want all the facilities on your doorstep. So that's what we want. The challenge for us is transition between the dynamics that operate today and moving behaviour and influencing behaviour and helping behaviour shift to this new model. we've thought about how we might do this in a number of ways. There's clearly the business and enterprise opportunity. We have to support green enterprise. We have to make it help it more to be more viable. If that's to be the driver of our new prosperity, creative industries, environmental technology, cooperative food, these sorts of things. We have to enable these things to happen and be truly sustainable. And not a preachy thing, but we've just got to try and help people understand the context, raise awareness, and oil the wheels of them changing their personal behaviour, their business behaviour. And we can do that by leading from the front. We can also do it through our regulatory levers, whether that's demand management, car parking charges, little things like that. You know, there are all sorts of planning policy, there are all sorts of ways that we can help people to change. Carrot and stick, if I can put it. And we need to plan cities, this city, in a much smarter way. We need to recognise that we need integrated communities with mixed tenure housing, high density, but recognising that people with families want space for their kids to run around in. They don't want to live in a chocolate box flat. And so we have to be smarter about our city planning. The truth is, across the world, there are hundreds of cities, and some will prosper, some will become exemplars of low carbon and will embrace this opportunity and see it and make it an opportunity. Some won't, some will just topsy-turvy, will emerge, Mexico City, disaster. You know, these examples will continue, but we can set the standard in Bristol of exemplary green capital development. We need to do it for our own success. We need to succeed by being quick to embrace change and supporting this transition. So, what are we doing about it? Well, the council's doing what it can, and we're very supportive of Alistair. The whole partnership, the whole green capital movement across the city, it's absolutely fundamental to mobilise ambassadors and real exponents of change to a green capital way of life, low carbon way of life. We do our bit. We are doing quite a lot. Energy, our social housing in Bristol is a much higher energy efficient standard now than the private sector homes. We've got to get into the private sector homes somehow and do something about that. Turbines, we're bringing forward wind turbines on our own land at Avonmouth. Biomass boilers, we're putting in biomass boilers to most of our schools. We've got a very significant programme of carbon reduction through biomass into schools. And we're coming forward with the idea of an energy company to talk about district heating, photovoltaics, all across the city. On a regeneration basis, we've got some exemplary projects we're trying to bring forward at places like Hengrove and Lockleys, in Knoll, where we make a reality of what I've described to you as a sustainable community. Houses, jobs, community facilities, green space, all on the doorstep, so you don't have to travel. And transport, people won't believe it, but we do have a plan. And that plan is about putting cycling, walking, public transport right at the very centre of the way people get around the city. We don't let the city grow too far, so people haven't got to travel very far, and they've got jobs on their doorstep so they can walk to work. It's a holistic approach. Cycling, public transport and demand management. We are putting up parking charges. We're talking about road pricing and workplace parking. There is a holistic understanding of what we need to do. Here's a few photos of what we're doing. There's the turbines, there's the biomass boiler feedstock, which comes from all of our parks. There's Hengrove, that's the start of an urban village. That's the sort of public buildings campus. I don't know if you've seen that. That's the new Skills Academy coming out of the ground at the moment in Hengrove. Fantastic. This is the cycling city photo, and also our rapid transit. Some of the things that we're trying to do. The council is very ambitious. It has its leadership role, and we're trying to set the standard. We've got this 40% target by 2020, and our climate change and energy security framework, which is a crucial policy document that Alistair alluded to, and we are seeking support from all major organisations in the city to adopting that very plan. And we have within the council personal accountabilities about carbon reduction, myself for example and others. That's the sort of table of the targets. I won't go through that. So zero carbon, question mark. It's a hell of a challenge, but we certainly want to go as far as we can in that direction, and I think today is about understanding how we might do that. I'm delighted to take part. I can't stay now, but I'm going to come back later. We need to mobilise everyone. That's what this is all about. Get the word out, and certainly in the City Council we are up for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.